Financial wellness. Reach out to them for advice at 855-DON-GINO. And now back to your hosts, Don Getling and Gino Franti.
The mayor of Santa Clarita, Mr. Bob Keller. How you doing, bud?
Gino, I'm doing well. It's always a privilege to come and join you guys.
Well, I appreciate you being here and bringing us up to speed. You know, as you are a busy business owner as well, I know that we tend to get very busy in our personal lives and what's going on with our children and what's going on with schools and extracurricular activities. And sometimes we forget about what's going on in our town. And I think increasingly, and this is your fourth term as mayor here for Santa Clarita, you could probably tell us a little bit more about how it's changed and, you know, from your first term to this term as we continue to grow and the city continues to expand and we're seeing a lot of change, and change is not always for the better, so I'd love to get your take on that.
Well, there certainly has been change. That's no question about it. I was first elected to the city council in 2000. I don't know what I was thinking in year 2000, not just to have run for the city council and was successful, but that's also the year I opened up my business, my real estate business, Keller Davis Real Estate. 2000 was a busy year, I will tell you.
And you now have 3 branches, right? Your real estate practice?
We have 3 offices, yes. They're all here in Santa Clarita, but we're still just a small local real estate firm. But, you know, as I reflect back to 2000, and one is, of course, so I was busy learning the task of being a city council member. Nobody just checks into work and really hits the ground fully running, if you will. There's things to learn. But having said that, the dynamics of the community were so much different at that time. As you know, we were probably, originally the city was about 37 square miles.
Okay.
In year 2000, we were at about 41 square miles. Don't hold me to that. I'm giving you an approximate. Today, we're at 62 square miles. Our population was, in year 2000, somewhere around, 145, 150,000. We're now 215,000 residents in the city of Santa Clarita. And also, as I think I mentioned on my last visit with you, we're now the 3rd largest city in LA County. So the task at hand for all of the city council, and certainly my capacity as mayor, is probably multiplied at least 100% from what it was in year 2000.
Well, and we appreciate you taking the time away from your very busy business and as well as your family to make the sacrifice for all of us that haven't made the same sacrifice. And I know that you're, we joke about it sometimes, but you're just a little bit passionate about it.
Sometimes it comes shining through, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I don't know
bit.
if that's good or bad. I do care. I openly tell you, Gino, and I have people make comments to me, after a council meeting sometimes. Sometimes, Bob, you look like you're maybe too serious or something of that kind. And I'm not into theatrics. What you see is what you get, and I don't mean that with any form of arrogance. I care about the issues. Some of them are certainly somewhat mundane and routine, but then again, we have a lot of issues come before us and that have tremendous impact on this community.
Yeah, and I think we've had over the years, even here on the show, we've discussed some pretty good wins. Overall, we've had some pretty good wins as far as some of the big ones, right? I mean, we were talking a little bit, we've talked about at least on 2 or 3 shows, the deep well injections that were going to happen here locally.
That's the chloride issue is kind of referred to. And, of course, so the chloride issue has been a huge problem for us, going all the way back. It first started raising its ugly head, if you will, I'd say around 97, 98. I was on a planning commission when it first started coming to our attention that the Regional Water Quality Control Board had concerns about the level of salts and the discharge water from our sanitation districts and allegedly affecting crops in the Ventura area as the underground, if you will, water system makes its way to the ocean. There's one thing that we have to say. We fought that battle with the Regional Water Quality Control Board, which is put into place by the state. And I must tell you, we lost. We're being held to a standard that is just, I honestly feel it's just so irresponsible and unfair to all of the folks living in the Santa Clarita Valley. 100 milligrams per liter is just a figure that I don't believe there's anywhere else in the state anybody has that low a figure on salt. chloride.
So is that something that's going to start to happen? I think we see, EPA and all these government agencies in California specifically continuing to get stricter and stricter and stricter. And in fact, it kind of ties into real estate a little bit, because one of the reasons I feel that real estate will continue to grow, not only in Santa Clarita but in LA County as far as appreciation goes, is because it's so hard to build as far as from an environmental standpoint. Do you feel that standard that we got picked on, or do you feel that that's the standard that's now going to start to be, we've now created precedent, we've put this in place here in Santa Clarita, and now we want to carry that forth into other cities and towns?
It's really seemingly a fairly easy question, but it's really a very complex question, and you have to address it, I think, issue by issue. I will tell you that the state of California, there's not another state in the union that is as challenging, if you will, on the environmental issues across the board. Air, water, you name it. It's on and on and on. And it subsequently has cost the state a great deal. I think we're all environmentalists. I certainly claim to be an environmentalist, and I know I am. But you know what? You've got to have balance. You can't just swing that pendulum so far over in one direction and not expect that there's going to be some negative reactions. And it's crippled business when people go out here and they buy their homes, and they pay X number of dollars for a property. You got to keep in mind those properties, that price is all being put in there. There's no avoiding it. You're going to feel it as the consumer. It always gets back to the ratepayer. And when you're just off the chart with some of these rules and regulations and requirements, I have to tell you, I think we're out of balance. I think there's something that needs to be worked on by the state legislature.
So that's a really good point. A lot of times I think that we take too lightly our property taxes, right? I mean, and we just tend to just go along with it, right? We're told it's 1 1/4 or whatever it may be, and we just go with it, and it is what it is. And we don't think of the things that have happened along the way to make it 1 1/4. What's it going to make it 1.37 in one city and 1.15 in another city and 1.22 in a different area? And we don't think of what made it happen. We just think of what it is. But you're acutely sensitive to that.
Absolutely. And, I was in a meeting, it's been a couple of years ago, but I remember, and it had to do with the water, the chloride issue. But I recall a person in a position of authority by the state making a comment in a meeting and said that, well, you have to keep in mind the people in the Santa Clarita Valley have some of the lowest water rates of anybody in the region.
We do.
And by the way, thank you.
Nothing wrong with that, right?
It was like we owe an apology. We're supposed to be paying more money here in Santa Clarita. How dare us complain about something? How about the people that pay taxes on issue after issue after issue? And it's getting increasingly difficult. But I took umbrage with that man's attitude.
Yeah, well, and I know that we know it's funny that you touched on a subject that I talk about even with my friends sometimes, and I say, we compare our cost of water to the Department of Water and Power in Los Angeles, and we're probably 1/4. And they say, well, that's not fair. And I said, well, why is it not fair that our water district has done a great job of conserving water and having a surplus for our city? And why should we pay for somebody else being careless? So, ultimately, I think that we do have a responsibility to the environment. As you said, you're an environmentalist as well. But balance is something difficult, and business has suffered in not only Santa Clarita, but all of California because of our environmental situation. So we definitely have to be cognizant of that and see where we go going forward in the next decade or two with that. So you're joining Gino Franti today on the Don and Gino Real Estate and Finance Show because Don's not with us, and our mayor, Bob Keller, mayor of Santa Clarita, joining us and bringing us up to speed on some of the wins and some of the reasons that you pay taxes here in Santa Clarita. But when we get back, I'm going to ask him more specifically in your real estate practice, how you see the real estate market for 2016. I know there's some uncertainty in the air due to the stock market crash that we started the year off with. So when we get back, we'll kind of debunk some of those myths, hopefully, for you on the Don and Gino Real Estate and Finance Show.